I found a few posters of her, and images of her, and this is where we're going to start talking about some of her guns. So, in her heyday of performing, before she became a prohibitionist, she was really, really down into this cowgirl thing. And so when researching, I couldn't find anything about really, there was not much about guns. Like, if you look up what guns did she use, you don't find information, right? But what I did is I went and found old posters of her and then looked at the guns she was posing with, and then with the help of my mentor, tried to do our best guess of IDing the guns and then doing a little bit of research on the said guns. And even if those aren't even if this isn't exactly the gun it is still a gun that would be plausibly used by her. She said, there isn't much information on her in terms of firearms besides her performances, but it does seem to be a fact, a known thing, that she was actually a pretty good markswoman, that she, not like Annie Oakley as much, where she was outside of her performances as into guns, but there was definitely some aspect of, no, she actually, this wasn't just performance for her, she could actually shoot. So, starting off with our first image, where she is holding up her gun here. So our theory, and don't, quote me on this, I think it may be a Smith & Wesson top break. It could also be an H&R, but let's pretend it's a Smith & Wesson top break for now. So, assuming this is a Smith & Wesson top break, we know that this is a little bit outdated for the time, because Smith & Wesson had kind of moved away from the top break designs around by the 1920s. They were largely phased out. They were more in favor of solid frame revolvers, and the strength and ability to handle more powerful cartridges was kind of important to that revolver design. So as we can assume from her cowgirl getup, that she is portraying, a cowgirl from, the 1800s, this gun is actually a pretty good choice, as it was outdated for the modern time, but it probably would have been more fashionable for the time she's trying to portray. The last model of the Smith & Wesson top break was the perfected model. It was produced in 1909 until 1920. But again, after 1920, they really just kind of phased out this whole top break idea, though it seems to have been something that she favored. And some other images I found her, she has 2 matching top breaks. So, okay, yes, no. Okay, so going into the next gun we have, this is another image I found of her in cowboy dress. Again, I really like this look. You can only see the gun a little bit as she's kind of holding it down low, but I think it is a 1900s double action revolver. There were many producers of this gun. They were really, again, popular in the 1900s, so this is, again, really late cowboy action era, so I don't know if she was using this for historical portrayals or if it was just general cowboy vibes. But, we know that Colt News Service was a version of this that came in, 45 Colt, 38 Special, 357 Magnum, and was adopted by the U.S. Armed Forces. Smith & Wesson also made models. Ivor Johnson and Webley Wilkinson Sword Company also made models. So, the double action revolver was pretty popular. Now, one of the interesting things about this, okay, so remember what I was talking about, how she performed live with guns? This is where this gun is the one I have a theory about specifically, because one of the things that comes chambered in is 44 Russian. Now, that is an important thing to remember, so hold on to 44 Russian and hold on for later, and this is just a random theory, and there's probably other things that are chambered 44 Russian that fit this, but we'd have a picture of her, and I couldn't find any other information, so this is my personal headcanon until other evidence is found. So she was doing a performance. It was a live stage performance, and I think it was like a vaudeville or burlesque type thing, and she accidentally shot herself in the leg with, we know the caliber, which is 44 Russian, so I could have been that gun. I'm not fully sure. There's not much information in the articles that I was able to find historically, but yeah, I know that gun safety is an evolution, and was less of a thing then, but I'm trying to figure out what she could have been doing besides taking shots on stage, which just sounds incredibly dangerous to me, with live ammo instead of something like wax bullets or something. I don't know. Anyway, the best part of this is that she actually, this is why I love this woman, keeps performing and says she didn't realize that she had shot herself in the leg until after the show and found out that her foot was covered in blood and like pulled up in her shoe, which is insane to me. As someone who has a high pain tolerance, generally, as people see my brutalities, I still can't imagine like getting shot in the leg and just being like, I'm gonna keep performing, and not realize I got shot in the leg. But I mean, I guess adrenaline's a hell of a fucking drug. So, yeah, which is wild. So, probably, I'm assuming it was unrelated to her getting shot in the leg, but maybe, who knows. She kind of retired from her acting career and started to settle into her career as a bootlegger, or more really as someone who ran nightclubs. This is where she fully comes into the flapperness of it all. Not only was nightclubs and dancing and alcohol and guns and smoking all a big part of flapper culture, as well as fashion, of course, being sexually promiscuous, etc., but nightclubs were a big part of the culture. That is where the culture was born. It is a party culture. It's about rebelling. And during this era when alcohol was made illegal, there were tons and tons of speakeasies and underground clubs. Now, Texas opened up multiple clubs in Manhattan that were pretty much the top of the brass. And not only was she running these clubs, she owned these clubs. Like, she owned multiple clubs throughout her time. She ran them. She was the life of the fucking party. And I think that's so badass for a time. I don't think women were even... women weren't even able to have bank accounts until the 1970s. Wait, oh my god. What the fuck is wrong with this country? Okay, women only earned the right to vote in 1920 and weren't even able to own bank accounts, and she was out here owning and running and headlining multiple speakeasies every time the government tried to shut her down. She would just go around the corner basically and open up a new one. It's like she was impossible to pin down and impossible to shut down. This girl just kept opening up new ones. She actually once said, here, let me find the quote, I wrote it down. She was impossible to pin down. She had a huge fucking arrest record, but she was never convicted. It was really, really hard to convict or even arrest women in the era, which is one of the reasons that flapper culture, or this anti-prohibition era culture, was so popular amongst women, is because police couldn't legally search women, and it was also really, really hard to arrest one and to get one convicted. So it was a lot easier to get away with crime. Women would even be taunting the police and be like, oh yeah, my alcohol is right here, and that's strapped to my leg that you can see because of my skirt. Yeah, you can't search me, even though you can see it. Fuck you, police. I love this. Fucking amazing badassery. That is the type of thing she was doing. She was running nightclubs. She was known as the queen of nightclubs, flaunting the fact that she was having alcohol and having these clubs in a time that was illegal. She was arrested multiple times. She maintained veneer of legitimacy, but rubbed elbows with celebrities, politicians, and gangsters. It was one of those very yes, I am very legit, wink wink. I am just so powerful that no one can really challenge me, and when they do, no one can convict me. She was a woman who loved the spotlight, as we talk about from the revolver she pulled, that's the stunt that she pulled with the revolver, from becoming the queen of the nightclubs. I'm trying to find this quote, sorry. Texas not only acted in her own films and kind of set the idea of women being badass two-gun, shooting girls, but she started her own company, Texas Guinan Productions, in 1921, only 1 year after women got the right to vote. She was industrious, she was a producer, and she wanted to be involved in her productions at every fucking level, which I think is really badass. She was often known in the gossip columns as Padlock Princess, which is a fucking great name. I want to steal that for myself one day. She was known to put up a good fight. Um, you know, cops shut her down. She would open up a new speakeasy. She once quotedly said about this, is keeping business as usual in the nightclub bracket is simply a geographical matter. She didn't really care about, legal action or getting caught. She once even said, which I got so used to appearing at the federal building that I now call it my alma mater. If that's not a fuck you, I don't know what is. This woman was truly a badass. Now, I don't know, when researching much about her, involvement with guns after the fact, I have to assume that from the hints I've gotten about her being a good marksman and actually having shot when she was younger, that she was still at least interested in guns. One source did say she had a collection of rifles, but I could not find that anywhere else. So again, take that very lightly. There were never any guns found in the raids on her nightclubs, but again, they were only mostly looking for alcohol, so if they had found guns or if they were involved, it probably been reported, at least that we know, and there was no, shootouts or altercations ever happening at her nightclubs that involved firearms that we know of. Everything that happened in terms of the law was mostly about, the booze and debauchery. So the woman who was called the female Bill Hart, burst guns blazing onto the scene to transform how women in cinema were seen, how women with guns were even seen, to bring us this image of the two-gun wielding badass cowgirl to becoming the flapper queen of the night. I hope to honor her in my journey forward, because that's awesome. The fact that she was not only into guns, but she was an entertainer, which, speaks to me personally as a woman who is into guns and an entertainer, YouTube. I like pulling stunts like she does, like doing brutalities in this outfit. The more I learn about the history of these women, the more I find kind of kindred spirits throughout history, which I really enjoy. It's nice knowing that I'm not the first person to have an idea in a way, and a lot of people are like, oh, why wouldn't you want to do that? It makes me feel like I'm joining a club. I'm not nearly as badass as some of the women I've learned about so far, and I'm going to talk about them soon, but knowing that other people were pioneering in these social movements with guns in entertainment as, just doing what they wanted to do and felt right to them, is pretty awesome. And I love that her involvement in the flapper movement, her tenacity with the firearms community, and I know this is more of a fact-based one, but it does really, it's important to me, one, because I have a total crush on her, but two, because I love learning about women, especially who kind of fit this, we're in kind of sex work, and also we're entertainers, or and we're also into guns, or even her, who's the fucking combination of all of them, and also we're saying fuck you to the government about prohibition. I think all of this is amazing, and I think that she was totally a badass, and and if you are somebody who drinks, fucking have one for Texas, going for Miss Texas, the two-gun cowgirl of the West, turned nightclub flapper queen, fighting the fucking prohibition. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I certainly did. And if you don't have a crush on Texas now too, I just, you and your Sir Francis Drake hitting self can leave. Anyway, I'm just kidding. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And that's it. Bye.